Hey everybody, this is session 5. Sadly, our final session of our conversations with Dr. Chip Dodd. First off, we've been so grateful for your time, but also he's been hosting us here at the Voice of the Heart Center, which is his building, and then also Chip Dodd Resources. That's the other part of this building. They share a big complex. It's slightly larger than the REBOOT offices. In that they have individual offices. We just share one giant desk, like a commune. We have like an office commune, basically. But we seriously are grateful for the opportunity to be here and get into this. And really what we've been doing every single week, hopefully, is helping us discover our true identity, to learn more about who we are so we can do what we were meant to do. And I just think that as we've gone through this, one of the themes that I can't help but notice, we've talked about how we were meant to crave connection. We've talked about how life is tragic, but God is faithful. We've talked about how so many times we have that compassion and woundedness are interwoven to one another, how they're deeply connected. We've built on these themes, and yet I instantly have to go back to this word of heart. You talk a lot about heart. Your books, I recommend you guys check them out. Voice of the Heart, Needs of the Heart. He also has a wonderful book on loss called The Perfect Loss that I'd recommend you check out. Go listen to the podcast, chipdodd.com.
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 Thank you.
Yep, DODD. Go check those out. But this idea of the heart, I have to say that most of the time when I'm growing up as a young man or in my business life, every conference I go to, everything I hear is really about how do you run your organization better in terms of your mental acuity, your mental skills. Everything's about how do we lead better and how do we keep ourselves physically healthy as leaders. And there's a lot of attention given to the mind and the body. And at REBOOT, we talk a lot about, well, let's not neglect this third part, the soul. But I think that this idea of the heart and the soul can kind of be one and the same. And you have dedicated your life to helping people really maybe address what is more important.
You bet.
Which is the heart. Why is, if I'm going to become who I can be, if I'm going to know who I truly am and do what I truly need to do, why is it so important that I get really capable or very skilled at navigating issues of my heart?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, in the beginning, I did not know the difference between a feeling and a floor. I mean, I didn't know. And my whole thing was be strong.
Right.
In body, mind, and spirit.
Right.
Sort of soul, spirit. Like that was how you live life. And I did not know, I thought feelings meant weakness. And if you had them, you marked yourself as no longer being a part.
Fragile or weak.
All those things. So I get that. And then what's amazing is that reality is, whether we like it or not, we kind of end up having to face how we're actually created. Now, the reality is, we talked about the Apgar. We talked about God's interest in us. We talked about how we're made as we grow and ask, seek, knock. We're made for connection, which means vulnerability, which is a matter of the heart, you know? So it's inescapable.
Yeah.
And then Jesus really does drop a bomb on us.
Yeah.
In Mark 12.
Yeah.
With saying, I want to tell you, everybody here, what matters.
Yep.
And I'm going to give you the order it matters in, and I'm going to tell you how to live fully with it, and I'm going to give you a personal daily assessment for you to assess where you are and what you're doing. Like, oh my God, he gave us marching orders.
Let me take a second and just read that, because not everybody necessarily was here for the last session where we read this. We actually didn't even read it from Mark. We read it from Luke, where it's a different account of it. So let me just pause for a second. Let me read this to us. It's in Mark chapter 12, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. So it's the second of the Gospels, which is really the stories of Jesus. And we're going to start in verse 28. Let's start in verse 28 and read through 34. It says, one of the scribes came to him and heard them arguing. This is a narration. Jesus is about to hop in the picture here. And recognized that he had answered them all well. And he asked them, what commandment is the foremost of all? In other words, what's the most important commandment? Jesus says, the foremost is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is the Lord your God is one Lord, he says. And you shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your mind, and with all of your strength. The second is this: you should love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. The scribe said to him, right, teacher, you have truly stated that he is one, and that there is no one else besides him. And to love him with all of the heart, and with all the understanding, and with all the strength, and to love one's neighbor as himself, is much more than all burnt offerings and sacrifices. When Jesus saw that he had answered intelligently, he said to him, "You're not far from the kingdom of God." And so that's the context, okay? So you just said he gave us a daily thing, he gave us an order of priority. Unpack that for me a little bit.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And see, the thing is, you mentioned I'm not all about the feelings, but I'm a part of an underrepresented part of what God is very interested in. I'm for skills, for tactical movements. I'm for strategies. I'm for building strength. Strength Finders is a great test. Mental acuity, intellectual abilities, willpower. I'm all for it.
Yep.
But it's not a replacement for how we're made.
There we go.
It can't let us escape how we're made.
That's it.
And so what's amazing is when the Jews would challenge each other, a scribe, a learned person would say, "Let me see how good you are at synthesizing everything down to its simplest form so we can understand it."
Yeah.
So challenge Jesus with, "All right, tell me the big one. Take everything that's global about these ancient truths and see if you can make it understandable for anybody, for a child."
Yep.
And Jesus blows our minds because what he starts with is astounding. The first thing he says, he repeats a prayer that every little Jewish child knew from birth.
Right.
And it's the Shema. And it says, "Hear, O Israel," even that. And this may take just a moment.
This is one of the pinnacle prayers.
Yes, this is
what every child would have learned.
Yes, they get this from birth. And Jesus quoted a child's prayer that you say from birth to death.
Yep.
And the first thing he said, "Hear," which means listen. And the word listen in Hebrew is where we get the word obedience.
Yep.
So I want your audience, I want everybody out there to know that the word obedience does not mean do. It first means listen. So he starts out with, let me start with how you're made. Listen. And what does every person listen for? We listen for words that receive us, words that make us safe, words that say we're cared about. I was with a couple the other day, and they were sitting in these chairs, and he was a very well-known intellectual and a highly proven, accomplished person. And she said to him, and her eyes filled with tears. She said, "It wasn't what you said to me the other day. It was the tone you said it." She said, "It melted me." And so that he had given words with a tone she could listen to. And see, we're listening for words of life that tell us two things. I'm safe and I'm cared about.
Right.
Children don't listen to words. They don't even know what words mean. Children listen for tones. So Jesus is starting out with, let me tell you how I made you. I made you to listen before you do.
Yep.
I made you to check things out before you go. And then he said, "Listen, O Israel." He said, "The Lord your God is one, the one who made you and gives you words you can listen to because his tones tell you that you're loved and safe and cared about." The omni-relational God. So boom, boom, he starts there.
Right.
And then he says, because of having been loved, and because the tones of the Father are truly a daddy's that doesn't give you a stone when you ask for bread, but he gives you bread.
Right.
He makes promises to deliver.
Right.
You show up with your hands out to receive. And so then he says, you are to love the Lord your God, which means bring the truth of how you're made to him. In other words, trust comes from challenge. If I can't challenge you, I can't trust you. If I can't bring the truth of me to you, how can I ever believe that I'm safe with you or cared about? All right. So he says, you are to love the Lord your God with all your heart.
Right.
The word heart is used over 1,000 times in Scripture.
Wow.
The word mind, and they knew what it was, is used 125 times. The word soul gets about 750. The word strength, it's kind of like whatever.
Yeah.
It gets some. But what's amazing is Jesus said, you are to love the Lord your God with all your heart, the center of your being, out of which flow the feelings. So, Proverbs 4:23 says, guard your heart, treasure it, attend to it, look over it, listen to it, pay attention to it, because out of your heart flow all the issues of life.
Right.
And your heart is the wellspring of life.
Yep.
So Jesus starts with, I'm starting with how I made you. I'm starting what you were like when you were born. And I'm going to major in what God majors in.
Yep.
So love the Lord your God with all your heart. And if you throw the synonyms of heart into the mix, You will get 2,000 references in a snap of a finger. Courage, steadfast, stand
Yeah.
firm. All those are heart words.
Yeah.
Okay, because courage means full-hearted participation.
Right.
It's wild. And our courage, we talked about much earlier, is strengthened through relationship.
Right.
We're refilled through encouragement.
Right.
So love the Lord your God with all your heart, which means your feelings and everything that follows, all your soul, which is the spiritual connection,
Yep.
all your mind, and all your strength.
Strength.
And then
Love
a
your
second command, which is equal to the first, is love your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
So he's saying, listen and respond accordingly. Listen to me who loves you. Where are you? That's God's first question.
Yep.
Where are you emotionally? Tell me the truth of where you're feeling, what you're needing, what you're desiring, what you're longing for, and what you hope. Let me hear it.
Yep.
And then your soul will be contented by knowing that my presence is with you. You'll be spiritually connected because you know that I can hear you from the inside out.
Right.
And then what's your mind engaged in? Is your mind focused on Philippians 4:8, whatever's true and noble and
Right.
just and lovely and admirable?
Think
and
about
excellent?
that. Yep.
Oh, I know.
Yep.
So is your mind engaged with how you're made, or are you running from how you're made? And then the last one is strength. So we major in strength
Right.
and we minor in heart. God majors in heart and he minors in strength. He says some trust in chariots, some trust in
Trust
horses.
the name of the Lord.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Some trust in their skills,
Yep.
their tactical advantages, their strategies, all good. But what matters most is your what for.
Yeah.
What are you doing it for? Let
Let me actually pause
Yeah.
there because I want to, don't lose your thought. I want to just kind of give people a chance for reflection.
Yeah.
'Cause there's a lot of good stuff there. First question is, have we started at the heart or have we started at strength? Are we starting at strength or are we starting at the heart? And I think that for many of us on this reboot journey, this might be the first time we're really trying to unpack the heart. But I think it's so cool that he says, stop, listen, and then he says, start with the heart. And I think that that's what you're doing. My question to you is, what are you learning about yourself when it comes to the order of these priorities? Heart, mind, soul, strength. What is this reboot journey teaching you? Prior to this, had you thought a lot about the heart? Had the heart been of primary focus to you? Had you been numbing? Had you been running? Had you been denying? Had you been crying? What had you been doing as it related to the heart prior to this? And then, like he said, where are you today? Where are you today? I love how you say that there's this order of priorities. Listen, love with your heart, with your mind, with your soul, and with your strength. And then out of that comes loving your neighbor. And you were about to share something else with us just a second ago as it related to that.
Mm-hmm. That when God is asking us to basically wake up every morning and start with how I made you.
Yeah,
Like, where are you
that's right.
emotionally?
Yep.
Now, where are you spiritually? Because you can't spiritually connect to anyone you don't trust that wants your good. And the heart is always in search of wanting good connection. Right. And then where's your mind? Where are you mentally? What are you engaged in? And then what are you doing for your body to carry this valuable equipment around with you? Mm-hmm. Are you taking care of yourself? Mm-hmm. Are you taking care of your body to carry around this very valuable stuff?
That's so good.
And then lastly, after you've assessed yourself, you cannot give what you do not have. And once you wake up to what you have, remember we did the empathy and compassion?
Yep.
Now, you can't give what you don't have. I've got something to give, and I can go do what I'm called to do. I'm on mission, and your mission is going to be your neighbor. In other words, go do your work, and it's going to be serving somebody.
Yeah, I wonder how in society, you mentioned, we value strength. I think you said we major in strength when God minors in it. God majors in heart and we minor in it. I'm wondering, so many of us, we might have aspirations of doing things. We've taken our 5-year vision and now we start to pursue it. We tend to rely on our understanding. We tend to rely on our strategies and our ideas, our chariots, our horses. My question to you is, what happens if we don't ever connect? If we don't ever connect with the heart, if we don't ever restore that connection with the Father truly, or even with ourselves, with our own feelings, what happens?
Yeah, what happens is the great tragedy. God said, I came to give you life and life to the full, and that meant all of us. Mm-hmm. And life to the full is going to require levels of vulnerability that trauma makes us hate. Mm. And here's the great tragedy. Every one of us was knitted together in our mother's wombs very specifically made, very
Right.
uniquely called to a purpose,
Right.
which means that everyone who sits in the rooms of Reboot, they're gifted people who have lost their trust and their value, or believe somehow they don't matter, or that if they do matter, no one else will be able to stand in it with them.
Mm.
So what happens is this gifted person cannot meet the needs of a world in need.
Mm-hmm.
And so you are gifted, I am gifted. The people in here who are taking the time to record this, and the people you're doing it for, everybody in this room and outside this room, they're gifted.
Yeah.
And there's a world in need of the gifts they have.
Yeah.
And if we don't come back to life, there's somebody's going to starve,
There it is.
somebody's going to hurt. And you know who's going to hurt most?
God.
The ones who love us most.
Yep.
Family members,
Yep.
uncles, aunts,
Mm.
children, spouses.
Yeah,
And that's the
absolutely.
greatest tragedy of all.
Yeah.
We increase the generational pain by
Yeah.
not coming back to our lives.
Who needs you? This is a question. Who needs you to reconnect with the heart of it all? Who's counting on you in your journey? Who is it that needs you to discover the real you, to become who you are so you can do what you were meant to do? Who's counting on you to do that? I got to say, this has been one of the most illuminating series of conversations I've had in a long time. I hope that it has encouraged you, as we talked about, encouraged. I hope that it has also maybe brought to light some things to understand a little bit more about how you're hardwired for connection, how you're hardwired to ask, seek, and knock, how we have a God who is going to respond to us when we do, how we're hardwired to be able to look out in the future and to dream, how we're hardwired to then take that healing that we've experienced and begin getting in the ditch with others and showing empathy and compassion to be able to pay it forward, and not only in our lives see that vision, but also see it in other people and share that with us. Because ultimately, that's what we were meant to do. We were meant to connect with one another. You all were meant to connect with each other as well. And in doing so, once connection is formed, there change can exist. Where connection is not, authentic change, true change can't actually happen. And so I have been just blessed to be with you, Dr. Dodd. Thank you so much, Chip, for being with us. This has been such a blessing to my heart. I know it has been to so many others. We will be starting a new series next week, so come prepared, come excited for that. We can't wait to share it with you. We're very excited about it, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much again. As I've mentioned before, if you've been getting a lot out of these conversations with Dr. Dodd, I just earnestly want to encourage you to take some time, go visit chipdodd.com. That's CHIPDODD.com, or go to Amazon and just Google his name. A list of books and resources will come up. They've blessed my family. They've blessed my life. I know they will yours as well. So go check those out and share them with us. If you've been blessed by any of his work, we want to strongly encourage you to go check those out. Not to mention, also go look in your podcast search for podcasts that he has offered. And we want you to go and gain all you can about this issue of the heart, because we believe that the people who are most heart healthy are the people who can heal and who can help others do the same. God bless you guys.